2020 is the year in which the first portals appeared on Earth. Portals leading to another dimension began to appear all over the Earth. Something incomprehensible was waiting for this quiet world. Many countries sent their troops to these gates to find out more about them, but not a single soul returned back. Then hordes of monsters began to pour out of these godforsaken gates. With the all-crushing power they had, all modern weapons were of no use to them. The monsters began slaughtering people. But some patrons began to choose people and they acquired amazing powers and abilities. These chosen ones were called hunters. With the appearance of hunters at the forefront, humanity began to strike back. Patrons provided support and could restore health to hunters. A certain mysterious patron granted an increase in the performance of a single strike. Such people can provide additional strength to active hunters. Among the countless number of hunters, one appeared whose strength was immeasurable. He had an immortal army of soldiers and the ability to control fire. The whole world nicknamed him the Demon King. He had a special skill as a player. Only he could improve himself through hunting. However, under the influence of 12 great heroes who were considered gods, his existence was erased from the pages of history. And they, people who called themselves gods, created Eden. Hunters began to be considered a new stage of evolution, and those who could not become hunters turned into slaves. Hunters began to rule the world, and thus 100 years passed. James asks Lewis if he's done yet. The guy, deprived of his strength, was talking about reaching his limit. You said that you want to change the world. Do you really think that with such an attitude you can become a hunter? Continuing, the man with a beard says that in order for patrons to notice you, you need to go beyond your capabilities. When James was first noticed by a patron, if the hunter had exceeded his limit, the guy asks. James replied that they just started supporting him. The boy did not like the hunter's answer, since in his perception of the world, it was dishonest. Life is unfair, even in the fact that Lewis is a simple man and James is a hunter. But since the guy cannot continue running, the teacher and student moved on to another activity. Out of nowhere, a long spear appears in the man's hand, which was taller than the hunter himself, at the end like a thin needle that would pierce everything it touched. It was a magical ability in the hunter's inventory that Louis was surprised to see every time. There's nothing to be surprised about. You'll understand everything as soon as you become a hunter, James said in response to the guy's reaction. After the young man learned that his parents were killed by hunters, James gave Lewis a book as a souvenir. It described the horror created by the killers. Arena decided that he wanted to correct everything that the villains had done. Louis said that James had helped him for several years, but when the young man looked at what he was able to achieve, he got the impression that he would never become a hunter. Becoming a hunter, as they say in Eden, is only the will of heaven. James listens to the guy, then brings him to his senses with a slap in the face and the words, "Don't worry, you will definitely become a hunter," his mentor assures Lewis. The hunter asks the guy about the book that the young man should have. "This book is in memory of my parents," Louis answers. It was the autobiography of a forgotten hero, whose history was erased by 12 deities. Suddenly, an unknown girl named Grace appears in the sky and discovers the hunter James. The girl uses a magical ability that resembles a hail of arrows, which was aimed at James. The hunter sensed a magical force appearing above him and reacted to the use of magic. The hail was sent straight towards the hunter and his student. James pushed Lewis away to save him from death. The purple magic seemed like it could leave a crater in the ground. It was so strong. Lewis was confused because he didn't understand what had just happened. He saw a girl landing on the ground. She had an ominous aura that was bursting out with power. Grace looks at the boy with contempt. For her, the guy is just trash. Lewis is confused. He doesn't understand what the hunter is doing here. The girl, looking at James's student, orders with her magic to bow at her feet. Such a powerful force that makes people obey. A mysterious magical force pins the guy to the ground. His body simply did what the huntress ordered. He was unable to even move. Suddenly, people in black suits appear, bowing their knees to greet Lady Grace, Queen of Eden. From the greeting of the people in black suits, Louis learns that she is the highest-ranking ruler of Eden of all. What is one of the 12 founding gods of Eden doing here? Lewis asks himself, looking at how the ominous aura of the queen intensifies the atmosphere. At the same time, Grace says that James could not run far. She orders him to be captured and brought to her. The servant, shrouded in an aura of her strength, obeys and begins the search for the hunter. Grace recently managed to catch the hunter's tail. She regrets that she did not catch him. The girl did not understand what a hunter like James was doing in this place. The queen uses one of her abilities, with the help of which she finds out that she does not feel a drop of magic in the guy. The autobiography of the demonic king, which now lies in the guy's inner pocket, hides the dirty deeds of the 12 heroes that they have been hiding all along. Lewis hopes that the Queen of Eden does not suspect this. Turning her back to Louis, the girl snorted and said that Lewis was just a worthless slave. The young man, fearful and trembling, kept his eyes on the ground. Lewis looked up, thinking it was all over. At that very second, the Queen, shrouded in her ominous aura, suddenly appears in front of the guy. Her aura instilled fear in all ordinary people. Almost missed it, says Grace. She felt the power emanating from Louis, although there were almost no traces of it left. The young man's heart beat even stronger, and his breathing quickened, and the girl felt this. Seeing how the guy froze, the Queen of Eden believes that he has something that cannot be betrayed to her gaze. With her eye, Grace orders to immediately show what Lewis is hiding and tell him everything he knows. The young man's body moved on its own. It was an ability called the Voice of the Gods, an amazing power. If this autobiography of the Demon King falls into the hands of the Queen, Lewis will die. The young man's body did not obey its owner. A little more and irreparable things would happen. Everyone who is dear to Louis will certainly die. They forcefully get rid of everything that they do not like, and those who stand in their way, this is exactly how Eden works. He did not want to give this book to the girl because he was afraid of the consequences of handing over the autobiography. The representatives of Eden clearly did not want the world to know the history of the past years. Suddenly, the book opened and fire magic burst out of it. Probably protective magic was cast on the book from falling into the hands of representatives of Eden. Grace reacted to the defense and managed to use her protective magic. It resembled a shield of large hundreds of bees. The girl was happy because she had found the autobiography of the demonic king. The queen did not know how the autobiography ended up in the possession of a simple slave, so she would take it for herself. Suddenly, the girl heard someone calling her name. The Queen of Eden turned around, hearing a familiar voice. It was James, who immediately rushed to the attack and tried to push Grace away from the guy, but the girl managed to defend herself in time and flew away a short distance without receiving damage. There was a loud roar. Clouds of smoke rose that were visible from houses at a great distance. The hunter picks up the autobiography of the Demon King, which the queen so coveted. "James," Lewis said with tears in his eyes when he saw his mentor, "don't cry, you're a man. You held up well and did a great job keeping the book with you," the hunter said. Lewis asks James who he really is and how a hunter can resist Grace, one of the 12 gods. Handing the book to his student, the hunter says that he did not have much time to explain everything to Louis. James did not think that he would be found so quickly. The hunter also said that the guy always says the same phrase, that he wants to change the world. Because of these words, James wants to believe in a person like Louis. The guy did not understand what his teacher was talking about. The hunters proclaimed themselves gods and began to rule over the common people. "Anyone as weak as you, like livestock waiting for someone else to deal with you," James said. "If you, Lewis, have the power to change the world, the power that can withstand the 12 gods, then will you continue to want to change the world for the better?" asks James. The sudden appearance of Grace in a rage forced James to hurry before the end came for both of them. "Grace is coming. We don't have time. Answer me." "I can't resist the Queen of Eden alone," the hunter shouts. Louis was inspired and confidently agreed with James's words. If an ordinary person can take possession of such power, he will definitely change this entire world. Hearing a positive answer, the hunter smiled and lunged towards where Louis was standing. The mentor's sword pierced the chest of the young student, sparkling with light like gold. Lewis felt the warmth inside him that was radiated by magical energy. The power stood out in his eyes, in addition to the aura that enveloped his body. At this time, James said that if Lewis met him there, he should be kind to him. While the young man stood with a shining sword in his chest, he asked what the hunter was talking about, but James did not answer him. A bright shining flash, into which particles of magic gathered, illuminated everything in the area. Fulfillment of the contract. According to the contract with the fallen angel, Louis received the very protection that the teacher and his student had talked about some time ago. What it was, Louis is sure that he was pierced through, but now there is not a scratch on him. The young man's body feels different than before. The strength that is felt in his body and the voice that told him about receiving protection. That's right. Louis became a hunter. Where did the newly minted hunter end up? Where was he transported? The magical power that Louis feels comes from his body. It was blue in color and floated through the air in the form of dissipating cigarette smoke. Did it really fall inside the gate? The young man, endowed with power, heard someone's steps and reacted. There was cover behind Louis, and he immediately hid behind it. The goblin, the guy said in surprise, is now definitely sure that he is inside the dungeon gate. Goblins are the starting and weakest monsters, but they are much more dangerous than you can imagine. which is why they are called beginner killers. Due to their exceptional sense of smell and hearing, as well as their crazy hunting style, for beginners without an ounce of information, meeting them is tantamount to death. Lewis hopes that the goblin will leave here without noticing him. But the evil goblin either noticed or felt the guy. "Damn, he noticed me," Lewis said in a whisper. And meanwhile, the goblin began to approach the shelter. The young man's thoughts were about whether what he was studying would work on a goblin. He could only hope for the skills he acquired in hopes of becoming a hunter. The guy, not coming up with anything worthwhile, simply threw a stone to the side to distract the monster. The goblin, thirsty for blood, heard a certain sound and turned around. For a second, Luik flew into a rage and took off the goblin's head with a sharp swing of his hand. The guy didn't expect that he would blow off this creature's head so easily. "What's wrong with my power?" Lewis says to himself. He just wanted to scare the goblin and steal his weapon. Have I really become a hunter? Just recently I was an ordinary person. The young man continues to talk to himself. Lewis receives a message from the system, which says about the fallen angel that he turned his gaze to him. James's student was surprised because the fallen angel is the demonic king. Other goblins, hearing the man's voice, crawled out of their hiding places. It turned out that these green monsters can hear any sound made. Lewis turned around and saw the army. A motley army that included warriors, spearmen, and others eager to kill. An army of green, bloodthirsty evil spirits. They could not be counted. But the one who was waiting for the guy behind this army frightened him even more. The huge green monster standing behind everyone is the goblin leader, the boss of the goblin dungeon. This is the end for Lewis, because he has just awakened as a hunter. The guy who became a hunter only thought that he was no match for the dungeon boss. Something suddenly clicked in Lewis's head, and he remembered his answer to James's words about the power that the teacher can convey, the very unknown that can resist the 12 gods. You can't give up at the very beginning, the young man tells himself. Louis ignited his power within himself after the memories. He can't just give up and die at the beginning of his journey. The fallen angel turns his gaze to Louis. "This is a chance that is given only once in a lifetime," exclaimed the hunter. Following the inspired young man, the fallen angel applauds the hunter's fighting spirit. The hunter gripped the hilt of his sword with both hands and lunged at the enemy with lightning speed. Louis' speed was so great that his silhouettes remained behind him. The goblin did not have time to do anything and was cut in half by a powerful blow of the sword. The next goblin was cut down by a vertical blow. Like his brother, Louis' magical power made him strong in body and spirit. While the hunter was dealing with the pointy-eared one, a goblin with a huge mace with metal spikes protruding came from the side from the shelter. The frantic Louis reacted with lightning speed and struck with his sword. A horizontal strike cut down the last henchman. The hunter receives a message saying that his level has increased. The leaves, cut in half during Louis' training, slowly fell to the ground. The training bore fruit and the guy learned excellent use of spears. When James looks at the student, he understands that this is what geniuses look like. Ordinary people have limits. But if Louis receives patronage, James is sure that he will become a hunter who will have no equal. Against the background of a cut goblin, the guy receives a message about leveling up. The scale is amazing, considering that Louis only received new powers. If he had not received protection, he would have been dead long ago. Having cooled down a little and catching his breath, the hunter says that he only has... Suddenly, something appears near Louis's ear and interrupts his speech, his new powers giving him the ability to notice it before taking damage. The hunter almost didn't have time, and repels a powerful blow with the sword of the largest and strongest goblin he has ever met. Having parried the monster's sweeping blow, Louis is thrown back several meters. Upon landing, the hunter was left without serious damage. This was the leader of the goblins, the one who by his very appearance instills fear in those around him. Even though he is a goblin, one way or another, he is the boss. The rules say that in order to defeat the goblin leader, you need to be at least a hunter, C rank. Otherwise, there is no point in trying. Since Luis has just awakened, he is E or F rank. Will someone like him who has just awakened be able to kill the goblin leader? The recently awakened hunter uses the inventory ability. Using the inventory, you can summon weapons. As James did, Lewis is going to put all his power into one blow. At the same moment, the fallen angel applauds the hunter's decision and grants him power over fire, the message said. The spear is the Demon King's weapon, and is also the best weapon the youth wields. Now he has the authority to use it. Lewis enchants the iron spearhead with his fire magic, which was given to him by the fallen angel. Gathering all the strength he had left, the hunter rushed like a bullet towards the goblin leader who was attacking him. Lewis's spear left a huge fiery hole in the goblin's body, so terrible was the blow, which absorbed all the remaining strength of the hunter. For the boss of the goblin dungeon, Lewis immediately increased the level, which was stated in the system message. The next message was about a spear, the strength of which had dropped to 0 and crumbled before Lewis's eyes. Having relaxed and exhaled, the hunter fell exhausted. The goblin dungeon had greatly exhausted him, in addition to the wound he received during the fight with the boss. The wound in the abdomen was serious. Blood flowed out of the exhausted young man. Two men dressed in armor talking to each other found the bodies of dead goblins. They are surprised that someone could kill them all. The men mention the leader of the goblins. Even he is dead. The warriors talk among themselves. One of the warriors finds Luis and shouts that there is a survivor here. The message spoke of a fallen angel turning his gaze to the exhausted Luis. Opening his eyes, the guy sees that he is lying under IVs in the hospital. It was not a dream. Grace really came out of nowhere and practically took the Demon King's book from Luis. In his memories, after confessing with the sword, the guy woke up inside the gate, and thanks to the gifted power of the fallen angel, he was able to wipe out the leader of the goblins, the boss of the goblin dungeon, from the face of the earth. The gifted ability saved him from inevitable death. It looks like those two hunters who entered the gate saved Luis. A girl comes up and says that the guy still can't move after being wounded in the stomach like that. The nurse asks about the hunter's condition, whether he feels dizzy. From the conversation, it became clear that those two hunters were from a guild of some major league. They saved the wounded man. The girl cannot even imagine what would have happened to Louis if the hunters had not saved him. When it comes to the guild, Louis has no idea what they are talking about. A girl with blush on her cheek speaks of serious wounds and great luck. Because after such a wound, few people survive, she speaks of the imminent arrival of some person from the association and asks the patient to rest for now. As she leaves, the girl notices the guy's cuteness and wants to tell all her friends about it. Louis apologizes and turns to the nurse leaving the room, asking what year it is. Apparently, the guy has short-term memory loss from what happened to him at the gate. Now it's 2022. After hearing what he heard, Louis was shocked. He ended up in a place 100 years before his birth. In 2020, gates began to appear, and in 2022, many hunters began to make names for themselves. The guy realized where he was. It was the era of heroes, in which hunters received protection directly from their patrons. To be a hunter in the years when Lewis lived, you had to become chosen by Eden itself. No one received power directly from the patrons. But now, the young man had an opportunity that he could not even imagine, receiving powerful magic from the patron. The girl was frightened by the actions of the hunter. He pulled out the needle that was inserted into his vein and stood up, intending to go somewhere. The guy did not care that after receiving wounds, it was dangerous to get up in this way. Louis was fine. He didn't have the dizziness he used to have, and his treatment was working. Okay, we forgot. Can you tell me where the bathtub is? The guy asks. The shower is located near the entrance. The nurse answers him. Louis saw his reflection in the mirror and was very surprised by what he saw. In the future, the guy did not have such muscles. He was also not tall. But now Louis is taller than 190 centimeters. The guy's face didn't look exactly the same, but it was very similar to what he had. But the physique seemed to belong to someone else. A man in a black suit came to the guy. It looked like he was the one the nurse was talking about. Without words, sitting down at the table, the man in the suit, glancing at the guy, began a conversation. The man in the suit was named Kim. He was from the association. The man in black talked about the incident at the gate after which Louis was saved by the Major League Guild. Kim was told that the survivor had memory lapses, and is this really so? Louis believes that the nurse was talking about him. He calms down and confirms what they told Kim about the patient. The man in black asks if Louis could tell him what he remembers, such as his name or family information, how he got through the gate, or anything he remembers. After the wounded hunter was taken to the hospital and the association tried to find information about Luis. But as the hospital and association workers said, they were unable to find out anything. No name, no family, nothing at all. It is impossible for information about Louis from the future to appear in the past. Doctors say that the memory loss may be related to the incident at the gate or awakening as a hunter. The guy says that he is 23 years old. At that very second, the name of the Demon King came to mind. Louis borrowed the name from the king's autobiography and nicknamed himself Nicholas. The guy's feelings make him understand that he has made the right decision. The guy says that he doesn't remember anything else. Kim, thoughtfully, talks about a small problem because of Nicholas's words. The association man asks what the victim felt while he was inside the gate. Nicholas spoke about the voice in his head. These words were spoken by the fallen angel. Kim stared at the young man with his eyes wide open, clearly not expecting such an answer. "I will be your patron," the guy said with blue eyes. These were the words Nicholas heard in his head. Kim from the association realized that the person opposite him had indeed become a hunter and informed him about this. The guy in the suit asked if Nicholas remembered anything about the hunters. Perhaps they are the chosen people, that's all. Nicholas answered when asked who the hunters are. Rising from his chair, Kim thanked him for his time. After their conversation, someone else may come, but the association will contact Nicholas again if necessary. Leaning towards the hunter, the man from the association said that Nicholas had become someone incredibly important to the whole world. Kim, with a slightly sad expression on his face, looking at the floor, wished him all the best. After the man in the suit left, Nicholas noticed his politeness. By saying the word status, the hunter could call up a window with information. This was one of the Demon King's abilities. Looking at the status window, Nicholas saw his level 9 player trait, title Goblin Slayer, endurance, strength, agility, magic, second level fire control. He had no familiars and no abilities. Nicholas thinks that the reason why the 12 heroes tried to keep the Demon King in check, and the reason why the king could become stronger faster than the other heroes, is because of a trait called the player. Unlike hunters who required the blessing of patrons to become stronger, the king was able to become stronger without anyone's help. In addition to all this, the mysterious king was the only one who could become stronger due to the player skill. Something was kindled inside the hunter. Now Nicholas realized his power and became the same as the king, information about which is described in the book donated by James. The nurse congratulated Nicholas on becoming a hunter, to which the guy responded with gratitude. "Does becoming a hunter require congratulations?" asks the young man. The girl was sure of this because becoming a hunter is like winning the lottery. Even low-rank F hunters can become so rich that an ordinary person cannot even imagine. The nurse said that even without fighting the monsters in the gate, there are many things that become available to hunters. Nicholas can become a blacksmith, forging magical items using his infusion of mana. It can also be a bodyguard for important people. Huge queues of rich people will line up in the hope of hiring a hunter like Nicholas. Listening to the girl, the guy did not learn anything new, because those who are not elected become absolutely powerless. And Louis from the future was so powerless. With a sad face and looking down, the young man asks the girl, and because of becoming a hunter, he should now be happy. The girl, without answering the question, handed Nicholas a package from Kim from the association. It contained things that Nicholas was wearing during the incident at the gate. People from the association said that they were not suitable for wearing, but decided to keep them in case Nicholas needed them. After that, the nurse congratulated the guy on his discharge from the hospital and left. The hunter, leaving the hospital, found himself in the era of heroes, Shibuya. Before he would not have even been able to set foot in this place, Nicholas notices that everything looks bright and peaceful. The inspector approaches the hunter and says that he was waiting for him. Nicholas greeted the guy. The man in the suit asked the guy to come with him to the association. He said that only an awakened hunter does not need to walk around the city. As soon as the guy registers as a hunter, he will be given an apartment. From time to time, people appear with a similar situation as Nicholas. Kim congratulates the guy with a smile on his face. The test showed that Nicholas is a C-rank hunter, because there are not many people in the country who received C rank immediately after awakening. The inspector offers to continue the conversation and explain everything after Nicholas goes through registration. The hunter, who had been listening all this time, agreed and thanked Kim. Hunters Association, a tall tower with many windows in which registration and other assistance to hunters takes place. Nicholas waits for the registration results and listens to the information. Usually after waking up, people get F or E rank. All hunter ranks are in alphabetical order. Nicholas's card with photo, name, and rank C. The higher the rank, the more prospects that will open up for him, as well as some special attitude towards the hunter. Kim talks about completing registration and points to the door, talking about his new home. Entering inside, the guy was shocked by what he saw and just stood there, admiring the view. Huge windows, a wooden table, and a large sofa. What more could you dream of? There were tears in Nicholas's eyes. He felt so beautiful and comfortable when he saw the room. The interior felt old-fashioned to him. Kim asks if he liked this apartment. Nicholas thanked the inspector and answered briefly, very strongly. This day is special for the guy, because he was finally able to become a hunter. Now Nicholas understands what it's like to have his own home for the first time in his life. Almost forgetting, Kim talks about a man who wants to meet Nicholas. Panicked Nicholas stutteringly asked who wants to meet him. There shouldn't be anyone here who knows that he is from the future. All the time the hunter was calm, and then there was such a reaction. Kim was a little surprised and replied that that man was the head of the Major League Guild. People from this guild saved Nicholas at the gate. The inspector speaks about the interest of the guild head in Nicholas. The guy can also reject the request if he is not comfortable meeting with the leader. Nicholas asked about the Major League Guild and found out that it is a very active guild, attracting a lot of attention to itself lately. The hunter agrees to meet with the main man of the Major League Guild, and the two go outside. Kim from the association introduces the awakened hunter to the leader, calling him Mr. Nicholas. Turning to the bald man, Kim introduces the guy to the leader of the Major League Guild. Before he has time to fully introduce the head, he is interrupted. "I will introduce myself," the head tells the inspector. "I'm a Major League Guild leader, James. What a tall guy," the man says out loud. "Bald head? Though no beard yet, this is really young, James." The man asks what Nicholas is looking at so intently. Returning to reality, the guy feels a little awkward. The young man apologizes for his unconscious actions. He did not want to offend anyone. Nicholas almost made a mistake. He was taken by surprise. The guy could not even think that he would so soon meet the person who cared about him. The head calms the young man down and asks if they had met before. Nicholas looked very familiar to the guild leader. It was James who taught the boy, then still calling himself Lewis, all the basic skills to become a hunter in the future. Nicholas answered the man that he lost all his memories after becoming a hunter. As a result, the young man learns that it was the head of the Major League Guild who became the patron who saved Nicholas in a past life. After realizing everything that was happening, the guy thanks James for saving his life. It was this bald man who was the hero who closed a huge number of gates and saved countless people. While bowing, James thought about how polite the young man was in front of him. A forgotten hero who was thought to be dead. James, now Nicholas. The boy met his teacher again, but in the role of an awakened hunter. Looking and clenching his hand into a fist, the young man feels that everything that is happening is really real. The guy does not understand what happened to the body. It seems foreign to him, not belonging to him. But since he sees that all his moles are in the same places as before, it turns out that the body is still his. Nicholas, in just one word, calls up the table of his characteristics: endurance 28, strength 31, agility 34, magic 38. Feature, player, these were his indicators at that time. The Demon King, a hunter not of this world. He is also a forgotten hero, and the only player with the skill. The guy does not understand why the king's ability appeared in him. The skill appeared due to the fallen angel who became the patron of Nicholas, but what happened to the demonic king? The young man knows nothing more. He thinks that he will not receive any answers now. Looking at the ceiling, the boy talked about how he returned to the past and received the most powerful feature that literally everyone wanted. A magical light began to seep from Nicholas's eyes after realizing the newfound power, the power that could change the world. Hunters Association, classroom. A guy fell asleep on his desk while waiting for the teacher. Upon the arrival of a man in a black suit, he greets everyone and introduces himself to the class. His name is Sebastian. It is he who will teach Nicholas and other students. The students are confused as to why Sebastian, a B-rank hunter and one of the key members of the association, was sent to train the newcomers. The students assume that among them there is a hunter whom the association has its eye on. The awakened young man turned his gaze to the other newcomers and began to listen to what the others were saying. Each of the excited newcomers saw a chance to prove themselves in front of the B-rank hunter. Everyone had only one thing in mind. While everyone was thinking about how to suck up to the teacher, Sebastian announced a seminar about hunters. As soon as the students choose a weapon, they will take a combat test. The teacher asks the beginners not to be nervous and asks if they know what happens when the hunters awaken. Raising his hand, one of the newcomers, answering a question, spoke about being chosen by a supernatural patron. Sebastian said that this is the correct answer. Also, the strength of the hunters is determined immediately after awakening. However, the hunter is able to upgrade. The man asked if the students knew any ways to upgrade. One of the students stood up and said that hunters are upgraded either through closing the gate or when they deserve the attention of a patron with some achievement, and you can also get certain skills or items from additional support. The teacher clapped and said that he was pleased with the students. Apparently, they were all well prepared. Since everyone here is smart, Sebastian decided to ask a very tricky question. He asked what the patron's purpose was. This question was quite non-standard, so there was silence in the room. Sebastian knew that no one would say the answer to this question, because every hunter asks this question, but no one knows the answer to it, who the patrons are and why they choose people turning them into hunters. At that moment, the teacher noticed a strange guy who was the only one who did not go out of his way to deserve his attention. So he decided to ask him. Sebastian pointed at Nicholas and asked him to answer his question. He added that he would accept the answer in a free form, since there is no specific explanation. He just wants to hear the guy's opinion. And then, Nicholas responded in the most unconventional way possible, saying that most likely they were doing this just for fun. Everyone in the room was shocked that the guy dared to say that about the great patrons, because they probably had a great plan. Sebastian also did not expect such an answer and asked the guy what he wanted to say. Nicholas explained that patrons choose a character, hunt monsters, and enjoy if he gets stronger. It's more like a game. Sebastian couldn't believe what he was hearing. It was pretty daring. Nicholas knew that the Demon King assumed that the patrons viewed their world as nothing more than a game, and despite all the power he had gained, he was unable to avoid death because of this assumption. The patrons must value their secrets very much. After some time, the teacher and students went to take the test. Sebastian praised the participant who entered the arena for choosing a sword and asked if she was ready to fight. The slightly afraid girl replied that she was ready and took the sword more firmly into her hands. The teacher said that she would fight a hungry goblin, but the girl need not worry, even if she cannot defeat him, because whether she passes the test or not will be decided by Sebastian. The girl agreed to these conditions and asked to begin. Before releasing the goblin, Sebastian said that she had nothing to worry about because the monster was brainwashed so that it could not kill a person or inflict critical wounds on him. The arena doors opened and a small goblin jumped out onto the battlefield. With a loud battle cry, the girl immediately rushed towards the enemy. She swung a blow at her opponent but missed the smaller enemy. The enraged goblin laughed, making strange noises and prepared to counterattack. He hit the hand of the girl who could not defend herself. The warrior flew a short distance but still stood on her feet. However, the goblin did not leave her and jumped on the girl's back. Sebastian noticed the student's poor position and thought it could be dangerous. But the girl managed to strike with her sword and cut the flying goblin in half. Then the participant simply fell to the floor and began to breathe greedily. Sebastian approached her and said that he was impressed that she was able to counterattack in a similar situation and kill the goblin. He let the girl pass further and called the next contestant. Nicholas entered the arena, holding a shield and spear in his hands. Sebastian looked at the guy and thought that this was a rather strange combination. The guy, meanwhile, thought that he would be able to attend further graduate courses only if he passed this test. And if he also proved himself, he would receive many advantages. Sebastian announced the start of the test, but first he wanted to clarify something. Unfortunately, all the goblins have already been killed, so the test will be taken with a different monster. And since the enemy has changed and the rules have changed, the guy will not need to kill him to pass. He will only need to get the teacher's consent. Nicholas was dumbfounded that he would fight against another monster. The teacher calmed the guy down by saying that the monster was brainwashed so he wouldn't be able to inflict a mortal wound, and as long as the B-rank hunter was here, there shouldn't be any problems. Sebastian asked the guy if he was ready for the test. Nicholas thought that they would probably release the kobold because he was similar in strength to the goblin, and replied that he was ready. The teacher smiled and said that it was time to start the test, and he also added that he was impressed with the guy's answer at the seminar, and he hoped that Nicholas would not disappoint him. After all, the monster that the guy will fight with in the last test is an angry orc. A system appeared in front of the guy, which reported that the orc has the strength of 2 adult men and incredible vital energy, and as is known, only hunters of at least C rank can resist them. One of the participants who watched the battle was shocked when he saw an orc on the screen. The other participants also didn't want to believe their eyes. They didn't understand since when orcs appeared in training battles. This became necessary thanks to a hunter who awakened immediately with a B rank. He appeared out of nowhere and is now the most powerful hunter in the world. Nicholas is the same hunter who awakened with a C rank and dealt with all the goblins and their leader in the D rank gate. Such a valuable hunter the association cannot miss. So right now Sebastian wanted to see what the guy could do in a fight. A system appeared in front of the guy, which informed him that the fallen angel was closely watching him. The battle began. The orc attacked first, quickly running towards his enemy. Nicholas, meanwhile, prepared to defend himself, taking his weapon more firmly. With his next powerful blow, he immediately pierced the stupid orc's shoulder. The guy thought that this creature was very stupid to attack. Relying on brute force without any plans, everything turned out to be simpler than he expected. But the battle was just beginning, and the orc immediately grabbed Nicholas's spear tightly. The hunter tried to pull out the spear, but to no avail. Meanwhile, the enraged monster prepared his fist to kill the villain. He immediately began hitting the guy with powerful punches, while Nicholas, meanwhile, defended himself with a shield. The other students were worried while watching the battle because it was too dangerous to fight an orc from the start. Sebastian, meanwhile, noted that the guy's attack was impeccable. If an ordinary person had been in his place, he would have definitely died from this attack. But his opponent was a monster, whom the teacher slightly underestimated. The monster continued to deliver crushing blows to the shield, and then the overloaded weapon began to crack. The teacher grabbed his dagger. He realized that this was the end, and if he did not intervene, then everything could end badly. However, Nicholas was not stupid and immediately let go of his spear. Sebastian froze in place when he saw that the guy was not giving up. Nicholas did a quick somersault and immediately found himself behind the green monster. Having opened up, the monster did not have time to defend itself, and the guy dealt him a powerful kick. The force of the blow staggered the ogre and was stunned for several moments. Nicholas took advantage of this moment and jumped, swinging his shield. He concentrated all his hunter's strength in this blow, and his eyes, like his shield, glowed with golden divine light. With the next blow, the guy rammed the monster's head, causing it to shatter into small pieces. All the students stood with their mouths open. They wanted to know who this guy was and whether he was really a newbie. One of them guessed that Nicholas had let go of the spear to upset the orc's balance, and the second was amazed at such incredible instincts of the hunter. Sebastian was worried about something else. This golden glow looked like a skill, but the guy didn't cast any spells, which means it was a high-ranking skill. The teacher was amazed. This is the first time this has happened since the beginning of the era of hunters. Nicholas, meanwhile, held his spear and received a system message that his level had been increased, and his power over fire had reached the second level. Sebastian decided that in no case could they miss this guy. He had to recruit him into the association, and no matter what it cost him. He told Nicholas that he passed the test, and the guy thanked the teacher. The guy also noticed that the weapon could not withstand the power of his skill. It was a powerful force. The power over fire is the basis of the Demon King's strength, which he has used since the beginning of his development as a hunter. It is not even a skill, but power. Unlike skills, which cannot be improved except by the support of a patron, it can also be strengthened even by the player's special feature, but the equipment cannot withstand such incredible power. Nicholas realized that in order to use this skill, he needed equipment made of metal, at a minimum. The exam is completed, and after some time our hero returned to his new apartment. In front of the guy stood his new friend Kim, and one old but new friend James. Young James told the hero that he wasn't sure he should be here. Nicholas replied that the man must be present here because they are celebrating a housewarming today. They chatted a little over the meal about the seminar and his upcoming test tomorrow, as well as places where they would like to go. Kim was appointed as Nicholas's handler, and he asked about the final test. As far as he knows, it will take place at the gate, but he is sure that the guy will not have any problems with it. Suddenly, James asked about plans for the future and whether the guy had thought about his proposal. The bald man said that he did not understand why, but everything inside him said that he should not let such a person go. Kim realized that the situation was heating up. One of the best guilds was trying to recruit Nicholas. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. The man added that one way or another he does not want to put pressure on the guy and is waiting for his answer. Nicholas was a little confused when he heard this question directly. Kim swallowed convulsively and continued to wait for an answer. Suddenly, Nicholas says that he is forced to refuse this offer. Kim was dumbfounded by the guy's answer because there won't be such a chance again. He doesn't understand what he's doing. James asked why Nicholas decided to do this because he himself did not understand this. He believed that this was a rather tempting offer for someone who wanted to become an active hunter. Nicholas also understood this, however, when he first returned to the past. He thought about all the possible scenarios of the probable future, and in the scenario where he became close to James so early, it became too dangerous. But Nicholas answered the man that at the moment he simply did not want to join any organization. However, if they somehow need his help, he will be happy to provide it, until he repays James for saving him. The head of the association smiled and said that he would keep this in mind. Then they crossed their arms like old friends, and Kim didn't understand what was going on here. Some newcomer is going to help the best A-rank hunter in Korea, and this hunter took this help seriously. Someday Kim will learn to understand hunters, but not today. The next morning arrived and graduation testing was due to take place that day. Sebastian had already given the instructions and said that before they started, he wanted to say a few words to the guys about the exam process. The venue will be at the gate, but there is no cause for concern, since Sebastian will accompany the guys during the exam. Nicholas knew that the man was a B-rank hunter, and his magical power surpassed everyone standing here. The teacher told the children that they would leave the gate as soon as they got all the supplies. After these words, Nicholas, along with other comrades, entered the gate. The first thing the guy immediately felt was a strange viscous air in this place. The teacher asked the guys if they felt the viscous air. This was all due to the strong magical power in the gate. Since all the guys went inside, they should move out. Sebastian asked the guys to follow his instructions when they saw the monsters. A group of hunters moved deeper into the caves in search of prey. Suddenly, the leader of the squad raised his hand, signaling the group to stop. In front of them was a small squad of aggressive goblins. Suddenly, one of the goblins noticed the intruders approaching. Sebastian shouted to the guys that they were ready and ordered hunters number 1 and 3 to prepare their weapons. The young hunters followed the order and prepared for battle. The goblin attacked the first man, but he deftly repelled his attack with his sword. The guy then delivered a cleaving blow to the monster and cut its body in half. The third hunter also did not stand aside and hit the goblin with his huge axe. Sebastian ordered the next numbers, number 8 and number 16, to engage. The guys heard the order and immediately ran towards the next 2 goblins. They fought fiercely until they cut down their goblin opponents. Sebastian then commanded Nicholas to engage. Our hero immediately flew towards the enemy like lightning. The stunned hunters who stood next to him could hardly keep up with his speed. Nicholas, with the help of his spear and shield, dealt with low-level opponents with lightning speed. He killed them one by one, lightning fast and fast. It was like a real goblin massacre. The hunters, who had difficulty coping with one target, watched the guy with their mouths wide open. Other examinees did not understand what was the point of a guy studying here if he was already capable of this. Sebastian was thinking that since the guy's perfect weapon control is incredible, he is as good as a B-rank hunter like him. There is no way the association will miss out on such a genius. Meanwhile, Nicholas finished the fight, and the system pop-up window reported that he had leveled up. Low-level opponents were defeated, and the squad of hunters moved further into the cave. Sebastian stopped his squad and said that they will soon reach the boss. The boss is different from the goblins they met earlier, so the squad must be ready. Let the guys check their weapons and equipment, and also drink protective potions. The hunters took the commander's advice and checked all their equipment. Nicholas, meanwhile, was thinking about the demonic king. He thought that he possessed the player's power and was killed by 12 heroes before he could release all his power. This would not have happened if he had leveled faster than them. Therefore, the hero decided that he would do everything to become stronger. Stronger than the 12 heroes of Eden or anyone else. Then our hero came to his senses and extinguished the flame created earlier. After all, Sebastian ordered them to follow him. A little later, the heroes found themselves in a strange place, which was filled with an incomprehensible pink fog. Entering the fog, Sebastian immediately sensed danger. The hunters also felt a strange force that seemed to be pressing on them. Almighty Nicholas was also frightened by this strange sensation. Sebastian turned sharply and shouted to the squad to retreat and run to the gates immediately. The shadow of an impressive monster appeared in the depths of the cave. An unknown monster threw fireballs at our heroes. The squad of hunters ran as fast as they could, but one fireball still began to overtake Sebastian. The man turned around and noticed the approaching threat in time. He understood that he needed to dodge, but if he dodged, the ball would hit the squad members. The hunter made a different decision. He stopped and used his Fangs of Rage ability, summoning 2 of his daggers. He struck 2 powerful blows at the flying ball and it split in 2. The balls separated and flew towards the squad, creating a loud explosion. The teacher was amazed at such destructive power. Even his poisonous fangs could not repel the attack. Immediately, he remembered about his squad, and the man turned around in a panic to check if they had been hit. But the guys were safe and sound because Nicholas was standing in front of them when he repelled the attack with his shield. Once again convinced of the guy's strength, Sebastian told him that he was incredible. The guy replied that this was not so, because he blocked most of the attack only thanks to his teacher. Suddenly, a system window appeared in front of the guy, which indicated that the fallen angel was asking for him. The fallen angel gave him a task. He wants Nicholas to destroy the great goblin sorcerer. The very monster that attacked the squad appeared from the shadows. It was a powerful goblin sorcerer who levitated and emitted an ominous aura. The hunters were shocked to see this monster. They knew that it could easily destroy B-rank hunters. It was strange that they were in a low-level gate, and such opponents should not be encountered here. The only one who can defeat him is Sebastian. And the man said that this sorcerer would be a difficult opponent even for him. So he ordered the squad to leave the gate and call for reinforcements from the association. But suddenly, Nicholas asked Sebastian for permission to fight this monster. The hunters were shocked to hear this statement. The monster was too strong for the guy. The teacher asked Nicholas not to overestimate himself. He, of course, had already defeated many goblins and even an orc. But the abilities of the great goblin sorcerer are based not on physical strength, but on magical strength. His magical attacks can easily kill a B-rank hunter. Nicholas said that this monster has fire magic. His main skills are fire arrows, fireball, wall of fire, and flame shield. The guy knows that this monster is strong, and he also knows how to resist it. In addition, All the monsters here are designed so that beginners can defeat them, so the mentor must give them a chance to prove themselves. Sebastian fell into a stupor from such words. The guy was too self-confident, but he decided to try to give him a chance. The system announced the start of the mission, and Nicholas readied his weapon. The goblin sorcerer, meanwhile, summoned a huge pentagram, from which several fireballs burst out. All the balls flew towards Nicholas, but he successfully blocked them with his shield. The students couldn't believe their eyes. The guy easily defended himself from such strong magic with just one shield. However, the experienced Sebastian realized that the guy did not block the damage, but absorbed the fireballs. But how he managed to do this remained a mystery. Fireballs flew at the guy, but he also easily absorbed their power. Then the hero rushed into battle with redoubled strength and ran at great speed towards his opponent. Then the goblin sorcerer decided to use another spell to protect himself. He summoned a huge impenetrable wall of fire, shielding himself from the attacker. Seeing such powerful magic, the hunters panicked. They realized that they could not cope and the sorcerer would simply smear them with long-range magic. But Nicholas stood motionless and looked at the wall. It seems that he was up to something and he had a plan. The goblin sorcerer, meanwhile, mocked the guy, knowing that he would never pass the obstacle. But our hero, who had collected fire magic in his weapon, looked at the wall of fire and told it to split. Suddenly, the fiery wall in front of the guy began to disperse, forming a clear space. Seeing such a cunning move, the goblin was surprised. Sebastian shouted that this was impossible. He could not use such abilities at his level. Meanwhile, the guy was already running to the goblin sorcerer and thinking that the skill of power over fire was incredible. The all-powerful sorcerer panicked when he realized that he was now in danger. He tried to quickly use at least some spell to stop the enemy. But Nicholas had already prepared his fire spear. Shouting at the top of his voice, the guy attacked his enemy. He inflicted many stabbing wounds on the goblin, tearing his body into pieces. Only after realizing that the enemy began to dissolve in the air was he able to stop. The students were shocked. They could not believe that he could actually do this. They immediately nicknamed him the Super Rookie. A system appeared in front of the guy, which informed him that the mission was completed. The fallen angel was delighted with Nicholas's feat. Everyone screamed with joy and said that right now, a Super Rookie was born before their eyes. Suddenly, another message appeared, which told the guy that in connection with the successful completion of the mission, the fallen angel would become his patron and provide him with the opportunity to summon a familiar. Nicholas was relieved that he finally had another ability that made the Demon King so incredible. The squad successfully completed clearing the gates, and everyone returned home. And meanwhile, a conversation was going on in one of the towers of the city. Sebastian bowed down in front of the man sitting in the chair and greeted him. The president of the association said that apparently the reason why Sebastian wanted to meet him so much was what happened during the final test. He guessed that it was all because of the C-rank hunter, and Sebastian confirmed his words. The president thought that the guy's rank was actually much lower and asked his subordinate if this was true. But Sebastian replied that everything was exactly the opposite. Hearing these words, the president of the association slowly rose from his chair. He said that if his subordinate talks about it like that, then that means it is so. The man asked Sebastian how much he thought the guy's potential was. The stern Sebastian replied that perhaps the goal that the president had been striving for so long was quite achievable. The man with the eye patch smiled when he heard this answer. He looked out the window at the city at night and replied that he wanted to meet this hunter. Morning came and the rising sun illuminated Nicholas's apartment. The guy came out of the entrance when he suddenly saw Kim and James. Kim was happy to see the guy and said that they had already waited a long time. Kim was worried when he heard that the rank of the gate Nicholas entered had suddenly risen from E to C. But apparently this did not cause any problems. James asked the guy if he had received an invitation to join the association. Nicholas didn't answer and just nodded affirmatively. He remembered how at one of the training sessions, Sebastian asked him if the guy wanted to join the ranks of the association. The students who heard this conversation were shocked that they were trying to recruit Nicholas into the association. However, Nicholas refused them, saying that he had no desire yet to commit himself to joining any group. The teacher did not expect the guy to reject his offer, but Nicholas believed that if he joined the association, he would advance faster. But if the guy did this, he would not be able to hide anything from them. Moreover, this same guy was part of the association. Nicholas believed that he should never get involved with him. No matter what the cost, he should avoid him. Tearing Nicholas away from his memories, James asked what dishes he preferred. For the guy, this question was much more difficult than the question about association. He assumed that he liked ramen. Having heard no answer, James asked if Nicholas liked meat. Hearing about this fried, fragrant food, the guy immediately started drooling. The head of the guild hugged the hero and said that they would go and eat tons of meat right now. After a fun day with friends, Nicholas returned home. The guy stood in the shower and did what people always do in this place. He thought a lot. He tried to banish in his memories all the events that had happened to him recently. Fierce battles, the exam, the way he scattered monsters left and right. Realizing that a lot had happened, he decided to see what his status was right now and called the system. The system said that the guy now has the title of Goblin Slayer, his characteristics have increased, and thanks to the patronage of the fallen angel, he can summon one familiar. Nicholas recalled that none of the common hunters can summon a familiar, only 12 heroes. Only a small handful of people have this ability. It is definitely thanks to it that he was able to accomplish all these feats. So it is not surprising that he was able to defeat countless monsters like bone dragons. Nicholas acquired the same powers that the demonic king once had. It turns out that the familiars he summons will be no worse than his. The guy tried to summon a familiar and a system window appeared in front of him, which said that the hero had only one chance to summon a servant guaranteed by a fallen angel. Nicholas agreed with this warning and ordered the familiar to appear. The next morning, the guy was sitting in his apartment. Suddenly, he heard footsteps and someone came into his house. It was Kim who asked the guy to look at his phone, where the news appeared that a super rookie had awakened C rank and defeated a dungeon boss that only an A rank hunter could defeat. Kim said that he heard how the guy defeated the great goblin sorcerer, and he was wondering how the hero managed it. Nicholas, meanwhile, was thinking that he was on the front page, but there was no personal information on it. However, he assumed that the highest ranks in the association already had it. Kim continued to say that recently, hunters were much more popular than many idols, but it didn't seem like that was of any interest to Nicholas. The guy replied that there were more important things to do than that and he needed to discuss something with Kim. Nicholas said that he wants to participate in dungeon clearings. After some time, Kim fulfilled his request, and the guy began to level up in dungeons, killing hundreds of goblins. Also, in addition to goblins, he also met orcs, which the hero successfully dealt with. The fallen angel was still watching Nicholas, and he liked what his subordinate was doing. Ultimately, the guy increased his level by clearing one dungeon after another. The guy looked at his strange bracelet and said that it did not react in any way after all the monsters he had killed, even after the death of the boss. It was unclear how to use this thing at all. A system window appeared near the bracelet with the image of a skull, which stated that the Keeper of Souls had not absorbed a single soul, and therefore activation was impossible. The familiar must be absolutely powerful or endowed with special skills, but this bracelet cannot absorb even a single soul. All this time, Nicholas thought that he needed the souls of monsters, but is it possible that he is mistaken? After some time, our hero came out of the gate, where Kim was already waiting for him. The guy said that Nicholas had already completed his 4th dungeon raid, and if he had any items that he wanted to put up for auction, he could give them to him. Nicholas put out his hand and a lot of different swords immediately fell onto the asphalt. Kim was glad that the guy had mastered the inventory, and he also explained that as soon as the item was sold at auction, the funds would immediately go to the guy's account. But Nicholas was worried about only one question: when he could enter the next gate. Kim apologized to the guy, saying that, unfortunately, there are no gates that can be reserved at the moment. This information surprised Nicholas because the world is literally being torn apart by gates that cannot be closed. And then they tell him that he cannot reserve at least one gate for himself. Kim explained that this was all because of one guild, which appeared recently and was gradually building a name for itself. They alone reserved about 20 low-level gates for themselves. Nicholas couldn't believe that some guild was able to reserve 20 gates at once. Kim explained that the guy was right, and usually the association rejects such arrogant requests. But since all the gates they had previously reserved had already been cleared, the association had no choice but to approve this request. Nicholas was in shock, but it seems he began to remember something. He grabbed Kim and asked the name of the head of the guild. Was his name Felix? Kim answered the hero that he was right. This is the Guild of the Army of the North. It was founded by Felix, who bore the nickname Super Rookie before Nicholas appeared. But Nicholas knew that soon this man would earn himself the title of hero and firmly entrench himself as a subordinate of the 12 gods. And, among other things, he would become famous as a ruthless killer and an absolute tyrant. The hero's gaze was decisive, and he realized that they had finally met. A mysterious man in a fur coat stood on top of a hill during the pouring rain. He looked at the rioting residents in the city, who asked to stop construction and protect their lands. The man's subordinate approached him and said that the riots were getting out of control. He asked what they should do to calm the residents. The mighty Felix replied that these people are just ants. If you destroy their houses here, they will simply build new ones elsewhere. and there is no reason to worry about the lives of any ants. He began to concentrate his power and said that these despicable slaves, who were given the right to life, are still dissatisfied with everyone. Blue power increasingly gathered around the powerful hunter. Suddenly, a huge, deadly lightning appeared from the heavy clouds. Lightning struck the ground and began to strike more and more of the village. Nicholas walked through the city and thought about that incident. After this incident, half the inhabitants of the village where he lived died. It was a terrible tragedy. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by a strange scream from a man. He asked people to stop doing this and begged for help. Nicholas clutched the phone tightly in his hand. He could not pass by the person in danger. In the alley, there was a man on his knees and trembling. He told two other men that they could not do this simply because they were hunters. At that moment, one of the attackers was kicking the old man's cart. The poor man was screaming and begging them to stop. He began to cry, but rescue arrived in time because Nicholas had already approached the man. The guy looked at the offenders and asked what they were doing here. Two men were distracted from the fun and noticed a strange guy who approached them and asked who he was. Nicholas answered them that he was just passing by and heard screams, so he came here, and here apparently simple hooligans were offending the old man. The eyes of one of the men glowed blue and he said that the guy didn't dare talk to him like that. However, Nicholas's aura was much more ominous. He replied that the man himself was the one who started it all. Two hooligans saw this radiance and realized that a hunter was also standing in front of them. Nicholas turned to the old man and asked him what happened here. But one of the hunters got ahead of the victim and said that this grandfather had injured his precious body with his cart. Therefore, the man had no choice but to ask for compensation from him for this incident. At that moment, Grandpa barely got to his feet and shouted that this was all nonsense, because they were the first to kick his cart and start beating him. Nicholas looked at the offenders and asked why they broke it. But the man opposite was already preparing for battle. He replied that the guy was also a hunter and must understand that everyone who gets in the way of the hunters automatically becomes their enemies. So there is nothing wrong with the fact that he broke it. Nicholas should also be more careful because the warrior is already beginning to perceive all his actions as attacks in his direction. The guy was not afraid of the hooligan and advised him to just quietly leave here because he had already said enough. If he does this, then Nicholas will let him go because he did not injure his grandfather in any way. But this only infuriated the hunter, who shouted that this kid did not dare to order him. The bully tried to attack Nicholas, but he dodged and grabbed the man's arm. Then he pulled the offender's hand, and because of this, he did a somersault in the air and fell to the ground. The self-confident hunter could no longer get up because Nicholas put part of his energy into this blow. But the battle was not over yet because there was still a second enemy. The second man also used his hunter abilities and took out a sharp knife. Nicholas said that he had never seen a weapon in such a place. Apparently, the hunter was very confident in what was about to happen. The man asked the hero if he had a guild at the moment because, judging by his appearance, he did not have one. After all, those who are in the guild like these two hunters are on a completely different level compared to the hero. He attacked Nicholas, but our hero was already preparing to repel the attack. The man tried to attack him, but it was unsuccessful. Nicholas hit him in the chest and he flew into the air. The two offenders were lying on the ground. The guy told them that if he hadn't been in the know, he would definitely have thought that their guild was no more than a mommy's under her skirt. After a while, the hooligans were detained and one of them said that they did not know who they were in contact with. This grandfather was the first to attack them. Kim and Nicholas watched as they were put into the car. Then Kim thanked the guy for a job well done. Nicholas said that one way or another, a deliberate attack by hunters on an ordinary person is a serious crime. And besides, there is a witness to all this, then this is the concern of the association. Kim looked at Nicholas, but he did not react to his words. Apparently something was bothering him. He assumed that the guy was worried that their guild would take revenge on this grandfather. But there was no need to worry because the association would look after him. Suddenly, Nicholas asked where the guild the hunter was talking about was located. Kim replied that this was exactly the Northern Army that the guy asked about earlier. Nicholas's fist clenched. He thought that it was impossible to take all the contracts for the low-level gates without help from within. The guild of the Northern Army and the hunters from the association. Rotten to the very core. The guy hoped that they would act much more quietly, but this is simply impossible. 2 days later, as expected, Nicholas was called into the association as an attacker.